Okay.
All good.
All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Quill and Query podcast. My name is Brandon Hall. As always, I am joined today by my wonderful co-host, Ash. Ash, how are you doing today?
We're living the dream. How are you?
Do I sense a hint of sarcasm in that answer?
Maybe just a smidge. Maybe just a smidge. No, everything's fine. Just long days lately.
Yeah.
So, yeah. How about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, pretty busy too. And every time I step outside, it feels like I'm stepping into hell with the heat and the humidity. But
Yeah.
other than that,
Right.
we're doing pretty good. Trying to keep my book buying ban in force today as I look through all the Prime Day book deals.
I know.
Um,
I've had to not touch Amazon at all this
yeah,
week. Yeah.
yeah. I will say I did cave for a couple of things. Even though I'm in like a tight budget right now, I got the box set of A Song of Ice and Fire only because my current versions of the books are all mismatched, and my Dance of Dragons paperback is like in very bad shape. So
Yeah.
I just got a complete matching set that's in good condition, and that'll be my A Song of Ice and Fire fix because
Awesome.
I haven't had like a matching set of those books ever. So
Yeah, it is nice when you have like a really nice new matching set. You can kind of like just like crack it open, just be like, oh yeah, and it looks great. I do love a comprehensive series that looks identical. It's great.
yeah, nothing irritates me more than having like different covers for the same series on my shelf. It
Yeah, yeah,
drives me
yeah.
insane.
I think I have like one or two that are kind of like that.
Hmm.
Maybe not actually. Now that I'm thinking about it. There was kind of a mismatched collection for a while, and then I went, nope, we're gonna get a comprehensive like collection of it all, so it all looks nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, love it.
yeah. All right. Well, we have a very special episode again, as always. I feel like I say that every week, but yeah, this one going back to our AI discussion. If you joined us, the episode before last is kind of where we started, and then as we said in that episode, there were just so many AI related topics that we were going to need at least 2 episodes to cover it all. So this
Yeah.
is going to be part 2 of that. We took a little break in between for a fun would you rather writing episode. So if you haven't checked that one
Yeah,
out,
it
be
was
sure
fun.
to go give it a listen on YouTube or Spotify. But before we dive into our many AI topics for the day, Ash, tell us a little bit about what you're reading.
I am finishing up Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I have been really enjoying it. I kind of read it for a bit and then paused and then got back into it, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
very good. Slow burn, character driven, not very like external plot driven. So if you're not into stories like that, maybe not for you. But who doesn't love a sapphic vampire historical multi point of view novel? I'm really digging it, so I should hopefully be done by the end of the week.
Very cool.
What
Yeah,
about you?
I'm just finishing my way through Dream Songs, the first
Nice.
volume. So really enjoyed everything about that one, like all of the short stories, all of the little biographies in between. Great read. So I'm excited to get to part 2 because
Nice.
there are actually 2 volumes of Dream Songs, but
Oh,
I'm going to take a little break in between. Um,
yeah.
so I'm going back to the Devils because I haven't finished it yet. I think kind of like what you did with the your current read. Like I started it
Mm,
and then I kind of took a break, but I
just
was
pause.
mostly finishing. Yeah, mostly trying to finish Dream Songs. And then yeah, now we're getting back into the Devils. Hopefully, have that one done here soon too.
Cool.
All right. Well, we don't have any podcast updates or audience questions. Actually, I take that back. We do have a podcast update for anyone who joins us on TikTok Live. Ash and I were just talking about possibly live streaming to YouTube. It would make our
Mm,
lives a little bit easier because then we don't have to do 2 screens, and we can just keep our eyes over here and then still engage with the audience. So if you join us on TikTok, let me know either in the chat or in our comments if you would be okay switching over to YouTube. I think it would just make for better show overall, and then it would also reduce like the bandwidth that I'm consuming over here from my internet because I'm recording on the one front and streaming on the other. So
Yeah, I hear you. I think it'd be more cohesive for sure. And also hopefully more engagement. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely. Because we do get more listeners over on YouTube, so it would
Mm-hmm.
be nice to just have our main live over there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of that. No audience questions this week, but you guys have been doing good at like commenting more and engaging with the shorts and stuff, which I greatly appreciate. I love to see when you guys comment, even if you disagree with some of our takes. Um,
Ah! I haven't looked at the comments yet. Now I'm a
no,
little afraid.
no. It wasn't anything. There was like one or two.
Okay,
I'm just
gotcha. I
making like a
mean,
blanket statement that I like
gotcha.
the feedback either way.
Mm.
And it's never been like hypercritical. It was like when we did the hot topics, like do audiobooks count as reading? People kind of just
Okay. I'll have
pitching
to go
in
back. I'm
there.
so bad. No, I think that is funny. Any
Yeah,
conversation is good conversation, honestly. But as long as
yeah.
it's
Don't.
not like you guys suck, then I'm like,
Yeah, we're
oh,
not
that
getting blasted over on
stinks.
YouTube. Don't worry. Otherwise, I wouldn't be
Okay, all
so
right.
like keen to do the live over there because
True. That's
that.
true.
Yeah,
That's so funny. Okay. Well, never mind. I take it back.
yeah.
We're all good.
We do
Dissent.
have.
Dissent.
Yeah. We do have some indie releases to spotlight. So some of these are already out, and one of them will be coming out here shortly. So I'll just go through the list here. We have The Heart of Grimm by Ashton Huston, which is available now. This came out on July 2nd and is a dark fantasy. You can pick it up on Amazon. And then we have Dueling Shoulder Angels. This is an audiobook release by Ben Schenkman, who was actually a previous guest on Quill and
Mm-hmm.
Query. He narrates his own audiobooks. He had the first book done a while ago, and now he just released the second book, and I believe he's working through book 3. You can pick up this audiobook on Audible now, as far as I know. I don't think it's available on any other platforms, but just check with Ben if you don't like to use Audible for some reason. And then the next release we have is The Widow's Monster by Resident Pirate Captain S.M. Campbell. This one will be out July 17th. This is a gothic romance, so not what you're used to from Seth, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
think you'll
excited.
still find, yeah, I think you'll still find some of what you like from his Corrupted Tides, Eldritch Depths books over here, but definitely leaning more into the romance with this one. So I'm excited to see how he handles that for sure.
Love it. Super stoked for everyone. Congratulations.
All right, after a much needed breath, we're gonna dive straight into the AI
Here we
topics, Ash.
go.
So,
All right.
um, I'm gonna kick us off with like more of a philosophical question with the AI topics.
Uh,
This is one that I think is really important when we talk through like all of the other topics on the list, especially the second one I have. But the question is, can AI write original stories? Can it create original works that also have meaning, or do you think AI can only kind of mimic what's already there? Like, what are your thoughts on originality and generative AI?
I I don't know if this is like I don't I just feel like anything I read about Gen AI and like originality, it can only take what it's learned from
Mm-hmm.
or, trained by. So I really don't know. I feel like it's kind of the same question that we ask, can anyone write an original story anymore? Because we all take and build off of one another. And, considering that books and stories have lasted all of humanity, I like don't know how much more originality you can in terms of like uniqueness. Maybe in terms of something like absolutely crazy, but I don't know. I don't think so. In the same way that I don't feel like, you know, there's anything like crazy new anymore, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. I think maybe if you were to be like, it could get abstract in ways, kind of in the way that House of Leaves does. If you've ever read that or like know what House of Leaves is about, it's like halfway through the book, it starts to kind of devolve, and then like he'll just have definitions over and over again on a page, and then there'll just be like one word on a page, and it kind of becomes so meta. that you're not even really reading it anymore. So maybe in that way it can, but I don't know. I don't, in terms of like meaningfulness, no, I don't think so. I think that is the
Hmm.
problem people are finding with Gen AI, is that it like doesn't really have much heart. It's kind of just like regurgitating or coming up with like what at first seems really deep, but then when you like look just below the surface, you're like, okay, well, like so and so read about that, or I've heard that quote before in a different way. So I don't know. I guess my short answer is no at the end of that very long answer.
Yeah.
What do you
No, that
think?
I think what you said about like originality is very true, because it's difficult for us, like as human artists, to create original works that have
Mm-hmm.
no ties to anything existing. Like there's been so many stories told, so much
Yeah.
made in this sphere, that it is very hard, as most writers will tell you, to be completely original and come up with something that no one else has thought of.
Yeah.
I guess your uniqueness in this sense is the way that you execute on it, and like the different
Yeah.
themes and messages, and kind of just the overall combination of everything um, that goes into like the creative process.
Mm-hmm.
So on that front, I would say no, it can't. But also, I would take it a little bit further, in that since it's trained on all of our ratings and everything on the internet and things like
Yeah.
that. Its job ultimately is to put out like a result that it thinks you want. So if you
Right.
ask it to write a fantasy book, for example, it's going to take a look at like, oh well, these are the most popular fantasy tropes, and these are
Mm-hmm.
what people like. So I think from that perspective, it doesn't even, like, its goal isn't to be original. It's to create something that it thinks you're going to like.
Yeah.
Um, and even if you were to, I guess, prompt it to try and do something unique and original, I don't know that it would be capable of that, because that's kind of antithetical to what its output is supposed to be. Like it's very much supposed to tell you
Yeah.
what you want to hear. And
I
um,
also I also wonder like what we constitute as original. Like what
yeah,
is that definition? Cuz to me like original is something like so unique, so kind of almost singular in its difference from other things that have existed before. And
hmm,
so I like, in terms of like originality, I'm really not sure, yeah, like how organic it can be if it is just trying to regurgitate what it thinks we want.
yeah.
Um, yeah, just wanted to throw that out there too, because I wonder, it's like, oh, here's an original story, but then you're like, okay, but it pulls off of like fairy tales or something like that. Like, how original is original?
Hmm. Yeah, and like I think you mentioned it earlier. Ultimately, what we create too is the product of all of our inspirations and things like that. So
Yeah.
it really does depend on how you define that.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the meaning aspect, I think that's the crux of why people don't like AI created art, is that it kind of is devoid of any meaning.
Yeah. Right.
Like like I said, its job is to put out what it thinks you want as the result. So if you ask it to give you
Yeah.
a fantasy book, it's going to give you like what it thinks is going to be the most likely to get positive reception, or things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
when, like, I don't know about anyone else, but when I set out to create a novel or like write a story or anything like that, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just um
Just saying hey to Kate.
yeah, no, I got distracted by the chat. um but like with human created art, there's messages, there's themes, and there's all of these things that go into it. And with AI created art, the sole purpose is satisfy the user. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't have anything to say. It doesn't have any any important message or consideration. It's just kind of there to give you instant gratification, like an image generator, for example, like Midjourney or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were to go to, say, like an art museum, you can look at the artworks on display there, and infer what the artist is trying to communicate there, as opposed to
Yeah.
an AI engineered art. Sorry, I
I
got
do
I got
wonder
derailed a
though.
little bit there,
No,
but
that's okay. What you mentioned, like the art, like the physical art, you go into a museum, and I
mhm,
wonder. I think we will make meaning out of anything, right? So there's like, if you put two pieces of art up and you didn't tell anybody what was Gen AI created versus what was human created, maybe it's a
Yeah.
photo or something that's like, so, I mean, it's getting so good now that sometimes you can't tell if it is like fake or real.
Right.
So if you put that up and you said nothing about the artists, people would still infer something from it without knowing. Versus if you
Hmm.
had a different scenario, this one's AI, people would immediately like shut it down, right? They'd be like, oh no, this is awful or
Yeah.
whatever. So I do wonder, and I think we'll probably get into this later, but like, as the market gets inundated with like kind of AI slop, you know, will we then have to like adjust how we view art?
Hmm.
Like, I just feel like that's going to be harder to do, or it's going to need to shift in a way. And I feel the same way about like writing. Um, because like, again, take the example I just gave and like make it a paragraph in a book, right? And don't tell anyone it's AI generated. You can, you know, I've seen them in examples online, like on, Tumblr or whatever, some like actually very beautiful and well written like paragraphs, and people are like, this is AI. And I'm like, if you hadn't told me, this would have like brought something to my mind. Like this would have
Hmm.
made me think about something or whatever. So I think there's like, I don't know. And I don't know if I have like an exact answer for this, but there is like that open-ended question of like, yeah, but if we don't know the original creator, right? Like, and if it still incites some sort of meaning inside of us or like feeling, does it matter? Does it matter? I don't
Yeah.
know the answer to that because it's super philosophical, but
Yeah. No, I that's a
it's a
great point
slippery slope.
actually. Because I didn't think about it from the perspective of, people will put meaning into anything, take meaning out of anything, and if you don't tell them something's AI generated, that changes it entirely. Because then
Yeah.
if they're looking at something and trying
Yeah.
to infer like what did the artist mean by this, but there's not actually an artist and they don't know that, um, that would be
Yeah.
an interesting experiment. I would like to see how that goes.
Yeah. It would be really interesting because if it AI and all it is just kind of like regurgitating what someone has already written in a different way or kind of putting it together. I mean, one could argue that like it is our own work reflected back at us just in new and different ways and by a
Yeah.
machine versus, anyway, it can get really messy, but I think in concrete things like, don't use it to write if you have a choice, but yeah, there's all these other like, well, like what if? Like what if
Hmm.
it does? I don't know. We can imbue meaning into anything. So anyway,
Yeah.
tangent.
Well, that's a good like transition into our next topic, because I wanted to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the copyright side of AI. So,
Mm-hmm.
kind of just want to get your overall thoughts on like where you think the lines should be for being able to copyright something that was either created or assisted by AI.
Yeah.
And obviously, with the caveat that neither of us are like copyright lawyers by any
Yeah.
means. So, I'm sure there are much better people to answer this question than us. But I just thought,
Sure.
from creative perspective, it's important to give our input still.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, these are ongoing legal discussions happening all the time. So, you know,
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard because I think and again, I know we said this last episode, but we're really just kind of like talking Gen AI that's been trained knowingly, like now that we know certain things are coming out, especially about meta and stuff, like knowingly being trained off of copyrighted material. It's
mhm,
like, it's almost like that analogy of like, okay, there's one poison Skittles. Are you going to take the risk of eating all of the Skittles?
yeah,
Just knowing that it's one in a big old bowl. I don't know. Like yeah, this is a hard one. What are your thoughts before? Yeah, how are you thinking about this? Because it's a
yeah,
doozy. I saw this in the thing, and I was like, oh, I actually don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so this one I kind of go back and forth on, because I feel, and some of our audience may feel differently, but I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
like proponent of, I prefer that the market will reject something before there's like legislation against something. So I would rather just
Mm-hmm.
see like Gen AI in creative spaces just fail just because people reject it, not because
Ah.
there's
Of the
like
legality of it all.
tons of laws against it. Now that's putting obviously a lot of faith in audiences. So, and maybe they don't feel the same way. Maybe they don't care if something's created with AI, if they can't tell the difference, like we were talking about earlier. So I think, knowing how a lot of these models are trained very unethically on a lot of pirated materials and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
I think, there needs to be clear laws about that first, like how these things are trained and what's okay and what's not. And then we can kind of go to how things are created and uh, how we copyright those. So if something's created on, with the help of a model that was trained unethically, then I don't think that should really get any type of copyright protections, because ultimately the
Yeah.
model that you were using to, help you with your creative work was trained on
Mm-hmm.
stolen data. So I think that's an important distinction. It gets into more of a gray area when you like when it's ethically sourced data.
Yeah.
So which I
Yeah.
don't think we've seen yet, but I think that's the logical next step. Is if these AI companies can't get away with pirating books, then they just buy licenses and they buy copies of the books or things like that.
Yeah.
So and then you can get even into even like murkier territory where it's like, well, what if it's a self-trained on my own writing and I'm using it for just me, like AI thing. So
Yeah. I think that's like a question you have later on, right? Like
yeah, we have
when we
a little
self.
more,
Yeah.
a little more distinction down the line. But so I think it's very difficult to give like a black and white answer on this. I would say, like, for the models that are trained on stolen data, I don't think you should be able to copyright things that you are using that for. But then the line
Yeah.
there, I guess, also becomes, at what point, like, what percentage of the work needs to be created by the AI? Like, is it
Mm.
1%, 5%, 10%? Because if you have 100,000 word novel and you used Gen AI to write 1,000 words, can you copyright the other
Yeah.
99,000%? I'm not saying that you should do that. I'm just saying those are
Right.
legal questions that need to be answered, because there needs to be a clear definition. And, as far as the law is concerned, if you don't spell it out, it can be
Mm-hmm.
tricky. So
Yeah. I think I kind of. If I'm about to sneeze, I think. Hold on 1 second. Let's see if this happens. You never know. Yeah. I think. I don't know. It is super murky, and I would like to think that like it should be. If a good chunk of it is, then it's. Again, I have like no idea. This is a hard one. I just don't. I feel I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm stumped on this one a little bit. I just. Yeah, I think I'm going to dive. Like, I agree with you because I
we
just
defer to the
copyright, and if
experts.
it's yeah, no, seriously, because copyright is so kind of vague and complex and also very
Yeah.
specific at the same time. I just don't. Yeah, can you protect something that's like not actually a thing, right? It's
Hmm.
like what is it, NFTs? I know for a while like that the whole copyright thing with like NFTs was a thing. Like how do you
Yeah.
deal with that legality? And if it's all digitally created by these people, then but they can buy and like sell and I don't. Yeah, it's. I feel like AI assisted works is a little bit murkier than like wholesale AI. I just don't know if you should be able to copyright claim anything that's written from scratch from Gen AI, which is trained off of so many different people's stuff and different models and whatever.
Hmm.
Um, I meant to look up how much of Gen AI is like kind of purported to be trained off of like copyrighted or pirated stuff. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to this one, unfortunately, or have
Yeah.
like an opinion I feel strong enough about because I don't know.
Yeah. I would, I think a good place to look would be fair use and like transformative
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
I think that's like a nice middle ground. Again, I'm not advocating for anyone to go out and like try to copyright anything created by Gen AI, but I think as far as creating legal restrictions, that's probably where the solution is going to be. Where
Mm-hmm.
it's spelled out that you can't just copyright, like you can't put into Chat GPT, write me a fantasy book, spit it out, and then that you own that. But
Yeah.
now if you
Right.
put create these elements of a fantasy book and I'm going to transform this and things like that. I don't think you
Yeah.
should do that, but I think as far as legality goes, that's probably going to lean more towards the allowed
Yeah.
usage of AI. And then when you get into AI assisted works, that's a whole other can of worms, I suppose, because you have to define what AI assistance is and how much assistance is okay and
Yeah.
things like that.
I like don't envy lawyers that are trying to deal with this at all. Or like I mean I'm glad that they are cuz someone needs to handle it. In the same way that like, you know, authors are like, "Hey, if my stuff is stolen from AI, like what does that mean? Like how do you do that?"
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, it's like I'm glad there are people out there trying to fight. My brain surely cannot even grapple with even trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it's it's interesting to be in new like copyright law territory with this.
It is. It is. Yeah.
All right, well, moving on to
Well,
one of my examples. Oh, sorry, did you have more on that
yeah.
topic?
No, I was going to say I can ask this next question and I
Yeah,
can
go right
ask you
ahead.
first if you'd like. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one is the self trained AI. So, what are your thoughts on self trained AI models? For example, an author training a model on his own writing style, a narrator granting permission to clone their voice, etc.
Yeah.
Tell
So
us.
this is the one where I think I'm definitely very much in what I said earlier with like being a proponent of the market rejecting something. So
Yeah.
as long as the AI is ethically trained and it's your own stuff that you're training it on, if you're using it to write a book or narrate something, I don't really
Mm-hmm.
care at that point if it's
Mm.
being trained ethically. My issue is I probably don't want to read it because it's still just trying to mimic you. Like it's not you.
Yeah.
Like it's I mean, how many movies have there been with the sci-fi premise of like creating an AI of a loved one who's passed away and it's always like, oh, it's not really them and this is hollow. And
Yeah.
so
Right.
I think of it kind of the same way where it's like, oh, that's cool that you were able to do that, but I don't want to read it.
Yeah.
So,
It,
but
yeah.
that's one where I'm like, I don't think there needs to be a legal restriction against that because ultimately there's
Mm.
nothing ethically wrong here. It's just I don't like it.
Yeah.
So that's where
I don't like
I'm
it.
kind.
I like
Yeah,
that. I just don't like it.
yeah, yeah. That's kind of where I'm at with
Yeah.
that one.
I think it's interesting. I don't so I have a couple different opinions in terms of like accessibility. So my therapist, shout out to Paula,
Hmm.
her partner of 40 years just recently died. She had ALS. And they missed the window, unfortunately, of being able to train the computer off of her voice. So when she was
Hmm.
no longer able to speak, she could still talk using her own like voice.
Yeah.
Um, so for things like that, where it's like self-trained AI and you're using it for accessibility purposes, I think that's great. I think it gives a lot of people the ability to like reconnect with themselves and their loved ones when for whatever medical reasons or
Hmm.
emotional, physical. So I want to say like that is a separately like that's a separate thing for me, and I think that's great. I think that's like what AI should be used for, right? Like if you're going to be able to do that in terms of like creativity, I don't know. I
Yeah.
think so. If you are using AI, if you're training AI based off of your own works, you're just wanting to cut so many corners that now it's a circle,
Yeah.
and it's just going to be boring and annoying.
Hmm.
Like, you know, that's my opinion. I think it's lazy. I just don't know why you would want to do that. Um, the narrator in the same way if it's like a really famous narrator like who's a famous narrator that we all know and love I don't know.
I can name one
And
for my first law fans, Stephen Pacey, but I don't know if you're familiar.
yeah, okay, so like let's say that they didn't want to hire someone he knew for like the very last book and they
Hmm.
wanted to AI train. I don't know if I would read it, but okay, maybe if it's trained off of him and he approves and he's consented or whatever, and then it becomes a thing.
Yeah.
uh The Brutalist, the movie that from last year that won a bunch of Oscars, it got in hot water because I think it was the director, and forgive me, audience, because I might be totally wrong on like the exact details, but I'm pretty sure the director, who was using a lot of his own familial history, trained trained AI to get his accent correct, and then use that AI to adjust all the actors' accents so that they sounded more Hungarian than the actors did in real life.
Okay.
And that's when I'm like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like,
Yeah.
is it a personal thing? Like, you want that to be so authentic? Well, then hire Hungarian
Yeah.
actors and actresses. Like,
Right.
you've got some of the best in the biz who are spending hours and hours and hours with coaches to get their accent as close as they can, doing all this hard work that actors do for stuff like that. And then you're just like, no, it's not exactly right. So we're going to truly, to me,
Yeah.
that's an insult to the art form of acting and,
Yeah. Totally.
all that kind of stuff. I'm like, what? That's crazy. So I don't know. I think, yeah, in this one, I think self-training AI to maybe help with like engineering problems, or I don't know, something like, I think that would probably be like the only thing, or like for what I said, like medical purposes, or legacy, if
Hmm.
you want to hear your grandma, forever, I understand that, I can
Hmm.
get. But if you're using it to create something originally, then I think that that's just like a cop out.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. No,
That's
I
my
totally.
opinion.
That's the whole disclaimer for the entire podcast, by the way.
That should be our tagline. That's just my opinion.
um, I lost my spot on that. Okay, there we are.
You're good.
Yeah, I think for the narration too, I care a little less about it. Where it's like I probably wouldn't listen to it, but ultimately, if it's ethically
Yeah.
trained and like the narrator is like licensing their voice to do it, and like I mean
Yeah, sure.
that's on them. That's their
It's your
choice. Not
prerogative.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just would
You're not
always
trying to like
prefer
mass.
the yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, outside of using AI for all of the creative parts of writing and creating art, it has a lot of other uses as well. Again, not uses I'm advocating for, but uses that we're going to talk
Yeah.
about. So, what do you think about AI being used outside of like the actual storytelling and creation of art, but more for other mediums, I guess, that are kind of adjacent, like blog posts, social media, advertisements, marketing. I guess you get the nonfiction books in there as well, since it's a little bit different than
Mm-hmm.
something creative. But yeah, how do you feel about AI in those spaces?
I I just, so for advertisements, I already am so sick of advertising, period. Like, stop trying to sell me shit. I don't care. Like, I don't care. I don't
Mhm.
want it. I don't need it. I don't need a Labubu or whatever it is. Like, I don't need
Oh my
ads
god.
for that. I don't need any of it, truly. Like, maybe this is just me being like a little pretentious white girl or whatever, but I like try and thrift as much as I can. I'm like on my buy sell nothing Facebook group all the time, being like, does anyone have this? Like, I don't know. I just don't. The overconsumption is a lot. Case like what, Pazuzu. There we go. Instead of Labubu, it's Pazuzu. Um, so I don't know. To me, it's just like, one, I was reading some articles today about the whole topic, and a lot of people are just saying that it's going to become just like everything else, so homogenous and lacking any type of uniqueness or, originality, that people are predicting that in like 5, 6 years, people will revert and no longer be using AI for advertisements. So that's how I feel about AI for advertising. Like, look, if you're going to try and sell me Jordans, do it in a fun way. I don't know.
Yeah.
My partner, like sometimes has to do ad stuff and they have to come up with new, fresh ideas. Like, that's
Mhm.
the whole point of marketing groups and advertising agencies is, I don't know, paying your artist to come up with something fresh and fun. So I like don't know. I don't care about that in that regard. I think any type of like written work, here's maybe where I'm like, AI actually would be really helpful with this, is if you're
Mhm.
writing manuals, like
Yeah.
instruction manuals. As long as
Hmm.
someone goes back to make sure that it's actually all
Verify,
OSHA
yeah.
safe, you know, whatever. But like instruction manuals, does someone want to be writing instruction manuals? Do we need to pay someone to write? Okay, maybe not. Maybe AI can do that. But like,
Yeah.
if it's any form of creative thought, I mean, colleges and universities are having such a hard time because most students are using AI now to write their papers. It's like, you
Hmm.
gotta use your brain. So
Yeah.
the blog post might be annoying, it might be tedious, but I just don't think that we have to give those to AI just because it's simpler and easier. Also, if you
Yeah.
do that, you're out of a job. So
Yeah.
I don't know. History books and stuff, no, that needs academic. That needs people to write it. It's a
Hmm.
collaborative effort anyway, you know. Anyway, so no, I just like don't think, except for any like technical manuals, I just
Yeah.
don't think it needs to be involved. Yeah.
Yeah. For I guess I have a different thought for like each of these. So for like the blog post
Okay.
example, my thought immediately goes to like when I write a blog post, for example, it's usually because
Mm.
I have something I want to say, or an announcement to
Yeah, of
make or something
course.
like that.
Yeah.
And I have never had someone like critique a blog post where like it needs to be perfect. Like that's a medium where you can be as informal and quick as
Sure.
needed. So I just don't know why you would need AI to write a blog post, at least the
Maybe
kind
for
that
like
I
a
write.
brand, like
Yeah.
those. I mean, I do a lot of research in my truly. It's literally all I do for work. And
Hmm.
you've got these big like I don't know, take Salesforce, the company Salesforce, for example, they'll have a blog, right, where they're like the latest in the industry, whatever. Here's the latest news.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, maybe for that, but again, that's like very like business
Hmm.
y. Um, sorry, that was a tangent. I'm like, sometimes, I mean, I get people maybe wanting to use it for that because it's like so mundane and like it gets 2 views and no one gives a shit. But like for
Hmm.
you or for me when we're writing our blog posts, it's like no, this is like we're working on these things. We want people to know it's us talking to them, right? So
Yeah.
anyway,
Right.
tangent.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I think for nonfiction related things, kind of like the technical manuals and instruction things that you've mentioned, I could see a scenario where it'd be useful there as long as there's a human element of fact checking here.
Right.
But yeah, I think an ethically trained AI too, like that's sourced and again with the human verification element, could be useful for nonfiction writing as long as you're not having it do like the actual writing for you, but maybe help having it help with some of like the structural parts or the research,
Mm-hmm.
I suppose. But again, with those caveats of it's ethically trained and there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of human oversight.
Involvement,
Um,
oversight, human
yeah,
overseers.
yeah,
It's
right.
very sci-fi.
And then I kind of like you with the ads. I don't know if I would notice if an ad is AI generated just because I scroll past almost every single ad I
Yeah.
see to begin with. So, but like you said, there are people whose jobs it is to create those and sell
Yeah.
things to you.
Right.
So just let them do that. Like it's
Uh-huh.
they get paid to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have as much like in depth thoughts on these scenarios. It's just kind of like some of them are I'm like I guess, but I don't see why you need to. There's better
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, I think there are just better ways. I don't know. I just like fear that we're just like losing complete touch with stuff. It's like, okay, sorry you
Yeah,
have to write a stupid boring blog post for your community newsletter or whatever, but like
yeah.
at least I know someone's behind the screen doing that.
Hmm.
I just yeah. I weep. I weep for the future.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using it to write those things too, you're just kind of furthering the dead internet theory, where it's AI talking
Yeah, I
to
was
AI,
literally
and
just
it's like
thinking that. Yeah.
like AI putting out the
It's
blog post, AI commenting on it. Like, at what point do
yeah.
you just, yeah,
Dude, it's crazy. I watch so much YouTube during the
hmm
day. I think I'm addicted, but I've throttled back a little bit this week. No, I like watch so much YouTube, and I don't pay YouTube. I just let all the ads will just start rolling in between stuff. You will
yeah,
not believe how many AI generated ads I see that are on YouTube. Truly,
yeah.
like old lady sitting, I'm going out of business, I need you to buy all of my jewelry. And it's
Oh
for
my
me,
god.
I'm like, this is 100% AI generated. Like this is this is, my grandma would fall for it, but I
Mm-hmm.
certainly know that this is not real. And I'm like, it's probably like 2 out of every 4 that I see that are AI generated, just like
Mm-hmm.
slop. So I just don't, maybe not big campaigns, like big brands. But
Yeah,
I will say I'm already starting to see like AI in advertising. And I think I've seen like a couple instances on the internet where people are like, oh, this big brand got caught using, I think, what was it? Was it like Photoshop or something like a couple years ago?
probably.
Someone
I know
like,
Adobe's like leaning heavily into
yeah, they were
AI.
like, this whole ad for literally Photoshop is completely AI generated. They're like,
Yeah,
it's Photoshop. What? That's your whole point. Like, you should, what? Anyway.
yeah, it's crazy. I don't get like AI generated ads, but I get ads for the AI like generators. So like I get
Oh,
ads for
interesting.
AI tools all the time, and it's crazy because I don't use them. I don't search for them. So
Yeah,
like
right.
aside from in the past when like ChatGPT was like the new thing, I was like like everyone else, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
But no, I get almost every other ad is like, do you want to create AI videos? And I'm like, no. So
No.
it's but I still
Fuck
get them, and
off.
it's crazy.
Yeah. See, to me, I'm like, what's a great AI tool or whatever? If you are someone who just has to deal with a lot of emails
Hmm.
and you need AI to sort who's real, what's whatever. I mean, Google kind of does like the spam thing, but you kind of have to manually almost do that. But
Yeah.
like, I need an AI tool that tells me when it's a real person reaching out for an inquiry or it's just garbage or spam or slop or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
cool. Like, if you can pull AI in to do that's a tool that you are using, that's fine. But like anything creative is a no. Anyway,
Yeah, I'm gonna actually jump ahead a little bit because there are a few
cool.
usage cases that I missed. I should have
Uh,
combined these two in the doc, but I think I know where you're gonna lean with these as well. But the the other we touched on like marketing and advertisements a little bit, so I'll steer away from that.
yeah.
But
Okay.
um, one of the other examples I had here was blurbs. I've seen some authors
Mm,
say that blurbs are the hardest part of pitching their book.
yes.
Um, which I can understand that. I feel that when I try to pitch a Knight of Knives, and every time I look at my blurb, I'm like, I want to rewrite this. But
Yeah.
I've seen some authors be like, is it okay to use AI to generate my blurb if I'm struggling and things like that? So what do you think about that?
No.
Okay, next time.
No. No, I'm just kidding. No,
No.
and look, I understand why. I
Yeah.
am someone who, if I don't have to do the hard work, if I really
Hmm.
don't have to, like, if I can pass it off to somebody, I'm the laziest motherfucker in the world. Like, truly, like, I grew up working hard. I understand hard work. I try my
Hmm.
hardest when I do need to do that. I get when you hit a wall and you go, this is extremely hard. I maybe am out of my depth. I experience this every day of my life, and I'm sure everyone else does as well. It's hard. And because it's hard, you have to do it.
Hmm.
Like, and also, if you don't know, and this is going to sound meaner than I actually intended to be, but if you don't know your story well enough that you can't eventually work hard to then create a blurb, no matter if you revise it when I had to do the blurb, a couple years ago when I did the the big event or whatever, it doesn't even matter. I mean, it took me 2+ weeks to
Yeah.
work on it and to get it to a point where I was like, you know what, this is concise. It is exactly what I need it to be. And even now, I'm like, oh, there's some things I would change about it, and it's just 3 lines. So
Hmm.
writing a blurb or writing your inquiry letter to whatever, if you have gone through the effort, like to write a novel from scratch with no AI assistance or whatever, and you hit the very end, and that's when you say you want it, you are
Yeah.
doing a disservice to yourself as an artist. I truly think this. And why would I read your book if you're not confident in creating that blurb?
Hmm.
Period. I
Yeah.
get it. It's hard. It's like truly the hardest thing to do. I know inquiry letters are crazy hard. I know the whole process is so challenging, but you like got to the point where you're already there.
Yeah.
So if it takes you a couple more weeks, it takes you a couple more weeks. You know, go reach out to friends, have them, if they've been a part of your journey the whole time, ask them to write a blurb for it.
Hmm.
Like ask your followers who have followed you for however many years that have followed your process, like, help me write my blurb, whatever. Ask your beta reader. I don't know. Like, help, you can get help, but it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be AI generated. And that's my TED Talk. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, I think that's the point you said about you're doing yourself a disservice. I think that was really good. Um, Ultimately, a lot of these things that people kind of point to is like, well, I don't use AI to write my book, but can I use it for this? I think we're forgetting that those things are still skills that writers need to have. Like, you need to know how to write
Right.
a blurb. You need to know how
Right.
to edit. You need to know how to do, if you're self publishing, you need to know how to market. Like, these are all skills that come with the job. So
Yeah.
it's, no, you can't just cheat certain aspects of the job. It's like, it's
Yeah.
all or nothing. And
Yeah.
I think, like you said, if you manage to write the entire book, but the blurb is what's stopping you, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something like, I don't think you need to resort to AI for that. If you manage to get through the whole book,
Yeah.
I know blurbs can be scary, but yeah,
They
I
can.
just
They
like,
are.
I think a lot of those things, like I said, those examples people will point to are just equally important skills for writers to have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of where I stand on that one. But
Yeah. And like, I know a part of this is like, social media blurbs or whatever, and
mhm,
it really does I guess it depends, if you are like a social media manager of a bunch of different stuff, I can get why, you would use AI. I think it's, again, I don't know, one, it's a balance. Like, is your job like asking too much of you and you're having
yeah,
to resort to AI to get all the work done? Which, okay, look, relatable. So, go on your merry way. But I think truly for creatives, every little exercise and opportunity you get to hone that knife that is your writing and, your artistry, it's, I take blurbs, like the social media blurbs at the bottom of any Insta. Here she comes. Hi. Hello. Sorry for the interruption.
that's all
I
good.
take all of those moments as ways to flex my creativity in different ways.
Yeah.
I know some people use, and I'll admit this in the past, I have used AI to ask what hashtags are most popular and like
Hmm.
to get most traction. Um, I used that a while ago just to see, because I was actually like Googling and researching, and a bunch of
Yeah.
different articles were giving me like different, fit. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like,
Hmm.
whatever. Let me see what ChatGPT says. And it's truly just like the same thing, just like pick
Yes.
and choose from different things. So I was like, this was a waste of literally however many quarters of a teaspoon or whatever. But like, I don't know. Even then, I like stopped because I was like, you know what? Trial and error. What works and what doesn't work. And now I have a document that has like the hashtags that I use consistently. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. It they're all foundational and building blocks, and people don't realize that. It's like, I think we're so used to scrolling or closing out and moving on to the next app or whatever that we don't really think that, like, yeah, all these little bits and pieces might have a use someday. So anyway, sorry, I'm talking way too much this episode.
Listen, it's a long form podcast. That's our job. Um, no, I appreciate all the in depth thoughts on the topics. I'm going to switch gears a little bit to talk about
Okay.
market saturation. Um,
Yeah.
so I think this is a concern, especially in the self publishing space, is that as these AIs get better and better, we're just going to keep seeing people pump out AI books and put them on Amazon, KDP, things like that, and it's going to essentially flood the market to the point where the human created works are getting drowned out just in terms of like sheer numbers. Um,
Yeah.
I think I read it a while ago. There's something like 4,000 or so books published on Amazon a day, and that I think
Crazy.
is an old figure. So that's not taking into account like the massive advancements of AI. So obviously that's only going to
Yeah.
grow. And I know these platforms are trying to add the AI generated labels and things like that, but that does kind of rely on an honor system to some degree.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so how do you feel about AI generated books, I guess, kind of potentially posing that threat of saturating the market to the point where it hurts indie authors pretty significantly, um, and like it might hurt just perception of indie publishing in general.
Well, I just ranted, so why don't you tell us what you think before I go on another
Yeah.
ridiculously long tangent?
Um, I I think this one I I'm trying to walk like a, a straight line here with, or a narrow line here with how I talk about it, because I know some people in the self-publishing space can get really defensive when you say that readers are naturally going to be more cautious going into this space. Um, I don't say that as a slight like against any indie authors. It's just there are so fewer barriers to entry, especially when it comes to like AI generated works, that I
Right.
think that skepticism is to be expected. So I worry about
Yeah.
it as someone who, like, we self-publish the anthology. I plan to probably
Mm-hmm.
self-publish other works in the future. What worries me is just the sheer like level of research readers are going to have to do to
Uh-huh.
find out if a work is, human created or AI created. And I
Yeah.
think that's going to either turn a lot of people off of like indie published books entirely, to the point where they're like, I don't know if this was created with AI. I don't have like a business, mission statement that guarantees all of our books aren't AI. I just worry that they're going to shut it off, like be turned off entirely by indie published books, because
Yeah.
they're going to think the risk of it being AI generated is too high. Not saying that's, fair to indie authors, but I do think that's something to consider. Um,
Yeah.
and then obviously I don't want to see the market flooded with a bunch of AI slop at all. But
Yeah.
I do worry that that might hurt self-published authors,
Yeah.
as these
I
things get better.
agree. I agree. I think it's already kind of happening. Some of what I
Mm-hmm.
was reading today, just in the background, was like, yeah, like we're already seeing the market being super saturated with AI slop garbage. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's harder, one, just because of actual volume, like you mentioned, 4,000 a day. And that's
Yeah.
not, I mean, that's a bunch of other stuff too, right? It's like not just AI, but like, how do you break through? How do you break
Mm-hmm.
through when it's completely inundated with stuff? And I personally, I have not seen anyone get upset in terms of like indie authors being kind of cagey about it all.
Yeah.
I just, I like to me, I'd be like, yeah, man, like it's hard. Like we should all get together and be like really proactive, and like it's okay if you doubt it. That's just like way more incentive to prove that you are, an all natural author, or something like that. So I don't know. It's one of those weird things that I just like. It's going to be happening.
Yeah.
I think that's where my mindset is. It's like it's already happening. It's already happening. It's already happening, and it's going to continue to happen for however long it's allowed to go. So rather than like, I don't know, like rather than worry, like what do we do as a community,
Mm-hmm.
going forward? I think that's really where we have to rally. It's like triage. Amazon isn't our friend in this regard sometimes, where it's just like, oh, it's
Yeah.
not really policing, you know. Yeah, it's hard. It's almost like I wonder if in the future we'll have a book version of Does the Dog Die.com or whatever that website is, where they tell you if like a dog dies in the movie, so
Mm-hmm.
that you can go make sure that you don't watch it if you don't want it.
Yeah.
I feel like there will eventually be a repository somewhere, somehow, that is just books that are written by AI that you shouldn't touch. So I
Yeah.
don't know. At this point, I'm like, let's find a solution to mitigate versus like, we're already here. I don't
Yeah.
know if that makes sense, but
Unfortunately. Yeah. No, I get
yeah. Yeah.
it. um, I lost my spot again, but yeah, no, I think a good way as a, an indie published author or a self-published author that you could minimize the effects of that is just make your stance on AI known in like the most
Yeah.
easily accessible place. So like your bio on Instagram or your Amazon by author by, or just wherever readers have to do the least amount of work to find it. I think that'll help
Yeah.
you, avoid
Mm.
skepticism. And then, like you said, hopefully in the future, there's more and more ways to identify works that have been created with
Yeah.
AI accurately. Because I know a lot of the
Yeah.
detectors out there right now are hit or miss in that regard. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of witch hunts and like false accusations of AI as well, which
Yeah.
can be
That's also a
equally
problem.
bad. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can actually switch over to that topic, even though it's the last one in the doc,
Yeah.
because we're on that.
Sure.
So, I know we've touched on it a little bit, but AI detecting tools are kind of notoriously unreliable at this stage. That might change over time, but that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
stop the AI witch hunts from happening. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I see with a lot of like digital artists and even writers is, a comment that says this is AI, and then they need to go out of their way to give all this evidence and proof that what they created wasn't made with AI. So I wanted to
Yeah.
kind of circle back to, our old discussion on this and just reiterate
Mm-hmm.
where we both stand on like AI accusations and witch hunts, and where does the, I guess, burden
Yeah.
of proof lie? Does it lie with the author once they're accused? Does it lie with, the accuser? Where do you stand with that?
Yeah. This one's really tricky. I personally am always, and I have always operated under kind of like an innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm also like one of those people that believe them when they
Hmm.
say, I have a credible accusation, whoever it is, like, okay, I hear you. And I'm not dismissing the fact that you think this is the case, but we're
Yeah.
also not going to outright like run this person out of town simply off of
Hmm.
that, too. And a third, again, this is really complicated, is like the court of public opinion, where
Yeah.
even if I don't necessarily agree, if a majority of people then shun that person, it's like, what do you do? I don't
Yeah.
necessarily agree. I've fallen into that trap before, especially when I was a bit younger, like the court of a public opinion. But I've kind of changed a little bit in terms of like, I'm just not like a cancel culture person. I don't really believe in that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I've learned my lessons in that regard. So I'd like to try and stay in the vein of innocent until proven guilty. Um,
Yeah.
with the understanding that things aren't built, like our systems aren't necessarily built oftentimes to really hold people accountable if they are guilty. Anyway,
Hmm.
what I mean by this is that it is complicated. I think when we're talking about social media versus like politics or whatever, it's a little bit harder for a community to come together, a community easily divided by like one ridiculous piece of drama
Hmm.
to say, hey, like this is how we should and shouldn't act. I think we should encourage authors when they get any accusations. I would say I wouldn't ever have a problem proving myself if someone
Yeah.
were to like be like, this is AI.
Hmm.
I don't know how I would actually do that without like showing the hundreds and thousands of documents or
Yeah.
like, my chat GPT history. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
it's so nebulous. Like, how do you do that? There are
Hmm.
going to be haters regardless of what you do. So I think maybe thoughts out loud, encouraging authors to be more proud of their non AI written work, like created with no AI.
Hmm.
Here's the thing. I think that would mitigate a lot of people. A great example is that my brother, who owns a business where they're trying to make like accessible equipment,
Hmm.
they put out a video on TikTok of the product, and Ross had taken all the photos for it. And someone wrote this long thing like, you claim to be helping disabled people, but then you use AI to create mock ups of your object or whatever.
Yeah.
And then what I did was I tagged that person in
Hmm.
Ross's behind the scene photos of the photo shoot and was like, hey,
Yeah.
actually, these are real photos.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. That's kind of where I land. It's like, be proud of the non
Hmm.
AI stuff. And if someone does accuse you of it, do what you feel like you need to do to defend yourself if it is not AI, written. And then if they continue to harass you, that's what the block button is for.
Yeah.
Like how I don't know. Anyway, that was long again. What do you think?
Yeah.
How are you feeling
No,
about it?
those are all good points, and I think I'm very much, especially like as I get older, very much in the camp of innocent until proven guilty, kind of like you, with various
Yeah.
caveats, and like with the note that that doesn't dismiss validity of any accusations that might come up, but
Right.
just I don't form a final opinion until I have all the facts. So I can say,
Yeah.
yeah, there's valid evidence here, but also I need both sides here.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, for sure.
when it comes to like just a random AI accusation on like kind of like the one that it sounds like your brother faced, like just no proof,
Yeah.
just yeah, those
Just
bother
assumed.
me. Yeah, those bother me, and I
Yeah.
usually dismiss them just because a lot of people are not. I'm getting the "Are you still awake?" notification on
Oh,
TikTok.
okay. Yeah.
A lot of people I don't think are well versed enough to identify like something that's made with AI. There are
Or it's not
cases
in
where
good
it is,
faith.
yeah, and that's where it bothers me, where it's just like you just comment this was created with AI and you don't back that up and you're kind of doing it maliciously. I
Yeah.
don't think that serves any real constructive purpose. Now,
Yeah.
if you do have genuine reason to believe something was created with AI and you ask for verification that it wasn't, I think that's totally fine, because like you said, if it wasn't, it should be pretty easy, I think, for the most part. For like digital art, I know it's most of the artists I know have like time lapses of their
Yeah.
processes, so they'll just share that
Right.
if every
Right.
time they get the "this is AI" comment, and it's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for writing, I guess I don't know how you do that other than, like you said, maybe showing your like document history and your chat GPT logs, but even those
Yeah.
can be, I guess, fake to some degree. So
Yeah.
um, it's interesting when it comes to like written works, because I feel like
Yeah.
that's a little harder to prove. So unless someone like the one example we touched on a couple weeks ago leaves the prompt in the actual writing, I think you got to be careful with those
Yeah.
accusations.
God.
Yeah, that one was
Yeah,
pretty
that's
bad.
true. It is true.
But yeah, I
Yeah, and I
think.
think that people will like. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I just had a little lag on Riverside. No, that was kind of
That's
just
okay.
was going to sum up my thoughts. Is just that I'm very much innocent until proven guilty, while also understanding there can be, validity to those AI
Yeah.
allegations, and I think, if it's coming from a good
Yeah.
place, it's totally fine to refute them. But also, like you said, if you just kind of take a stance and say none of my stuff is created with AI, here's my non-AI assisted book,
Yeah.
things
Right.
like that. I think that kind of dismisses before they can happen. It kind of prevents most of those cases from coming up. So I think that's a good route to take.
Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder how many books that are like fully written or like heavily assisted with AI that don't have the prompts in the final product.
Yeah.
Like how much readers will be able to tell. And I'm sure
Mhm.
it's out there right now like, oh, it's like very obvious when something is kind of like written by AI. I'm sure it'll only get harder and harder. But yeah, I don't know. I think I've seen people be super proud of their AI assisted stuff slash AI like created stuff. So it's like hopefully they'll, if not tell on themselves, be very just like straightforward, like, hey, yeah, no, this was super AI assisted, and that's what it is. And if people choose to engage, that's fine too. But I think we do more harm than good going around and having a full witch hunt. Like
Yeah,
you can
agreed.
just ask or inquire. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is another use case that
Also,
I've.
sorry,
No, you're
not
good.
to interrupt again. We are also about to get hit with like a storm, I guess. So if
Okay.
I go black, that's why.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, hopefully it'll be patient for us as we get close to wrapping up here. We'll see. I know the weather's been
Yeah.
similar over here, so.
Rough. No, I get it.
But yeah, the next AI. Actually, I'm gonna let you pick the topic because I think I picked like the last four, so I'll let you
Sure.
pick one from the
Yeah,
list.
that's okay. I really liked your AI dependency versus empowerment question. I think that's very philosophical.
Hmm.
Um, unless we talked about this like a little too much, but you were asking like, do you worry that people, including creatives, could become too dependent on AI for tasks rather than empowered? And
Hmm.
I'm really curious. what constitutes for you as like an empowered example of AI being used in that way?
Yeah. Actually, I was struggling to kind of define that until earlier today when I was actually listening to another writing podcast. It was Brandon Sanderson
Mm,
and another, I forget the artist's name. They were talking about
mm-hmm.
AI, and I was kind of listening to it in prep for this, just to
Mm,
kind of
love
get
that.
some more thoughts. And he, the guest artist that was on with Sanderson, I forget his name, so I'll have to go back and find it. He was talking about when AI tools were kind of first coming out. He thought he knew writers that thought these would be good for people who kind of get stuck when it comes to like starting a story or starting like a drawing or things like that. It could The example he gave was writers who really struggle with that starting phase. Like, I don't know
Mm,
how to write my first sentence, or I like once I get that first sentence out, it all flows and I'm good to go.
mm,
But that's what
mm-hmm.
blocks me. And he said, and I saw like really good results from that. I saw people writing more, and they weren't like, they weren't having the AI create everything for them, but they were like,
Sure.
help me start this and then I'll take it from here. And he felt that that was a good, like, I guess, a method of empowerment from the AI, where it was
Mm,
helping people write the stories that they already had kind of inside them. They just were really
yeah.
struggling to pick it up. And then he said over time, it sort of just evolved into having AI do all of the writing. And so
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where I'm at with this question, is like,
Mm,
I can see, and this is in creative spaces because I think there's different, examples we could give for other aspects of life. But I think AI empowerment is when you're, I guess, it helps you accomplish something that you didn't necessarily need it to, but it just kind of gives you that little boost versus
mm-hmm.
you need it to do that. So like, if I think we talked in our last episode about writing emails. Like, can you write an email without ChatGPT, or do you need it to, or are you just
Sure.
using it to, do all the work for you? So yeah, it's a difficult thing to define, because I think the
Yeah.
the line is already kind of blurred there. Um, but yeah, I'm rambling a little bit. So does that make sense though? Like
Please.
what I was saying about the
It does.
um,
It does. And I think you're right. I think, and Brandy Sandy is also kind of correct in this way. I I think what I hear when I hear empowerment is more closely aligned to the tool
mhm,
that AI can bring versus or is and can be versus something like Gen AI. So
yeah,
I think for like, okay, an example is a student who has not used AI for any of their papers, but is still struggling to understand the concept or study. And the study guide, or they haven't been given a study guide or something like that. Asking AI to be a quizzer, or something like that, I think can be super useful. And that's only if someone hasn't created it for you for your class, and then that's silly. But like, even
hmm,
if then, if you want to go deeper or whatever, or like, here's my answer to this long example question. Can you grade it like a professor would, or something like that? And then it kicks back and it goes, great work on this. Great. You feel empowered because this is something that sounds good. Here are some examples of where you can improve. To me, I'm like, especially at a big university or whatever, I think that's a great way to feel empowered and test your knowledge or whatever.
hmm,
Um, let's say you have a really complex question, and this is kind of going to be a little antithesis to what I was maybe saying last week, but I do think there have been scenarios where I'm like, I don't know what this very hyper specific thing is in my mind, and Google is coming up like completely short.
yeah,
Now, I haven't, at that point, I kind of just go, maybe this is too complicated and I need to come back to it. So I promise I haven't used Gen AI or ChatGPT for this.
yeah,
But I can understand in an example of like, I haven't found the exact example of what it would be like for a battle formation to occur with these parameters here, with this weather, these many people. That would take a lot of research, and maybe it's just for a quick flashback scene or something like that.
yeah,
That's and your AI gives you back something that you can work with, right? Like, while there's no exact answer, here's potentially what it could happen. And then you go, oh my God, ooh, light bulb, boom. And then you take that information and then you make it your own, you know. I don't know. I think in certain examples like that, I think that can be constituted as empowerment, especially for more technical things.
Yeah.
It's when you are using it all the time as a crutch for your creativity, as the fount of your creativity,
Mm-hmm.
that I think it no longer becomes creative, it becomes dependence. So that's kind of my thought. And I'm sure people will call me a hypocrite for some of the things I've said in the past, but I do think that
Yeah.
sometimes AI can be actually like a good tool
Yeah.
if used the right way and it's ethically sourced almost, which
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times is not. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned using Google, because that was actually one of the examples Brandon Sanderson talked about too, was like if you're thinking of a specific word, but it's not, it's on the tip of your tongue, but you can't remember what word, or you don't know
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
the actual term you're looking for. Sometimes if you try to Google that, it can be very difficult. But if you were to ask
Yeah,
ChatGPT, what word am I
sure.
thinking of here? I don't know if you've tried. I've tried that in the past. Full
Yeah,
disclosure,
yeah,
but
I haven't, but
it can usually get pretty close, if not 100%. And
yeah.
so it can be really helpful in scenarios like that, where if like AI is, or a search is coming up short, and
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to find like factual information about something, like what
Yeah.
is this word. I think that's kind of more in the tool territory, where you were saying that's a usage that I heard on the podcast
Mm.
earlier today, that I've used in the past, not currently, but definitely
Yeah.
have given up on Google a few times when I was trying to find like some
Yeah.
hyper specific information. Um, and I think that is an example, like you said, of it being a good tool, being
Mm-hmm.
empowering, versus you being dependent on it. Like
Yeah.
it's not that you need that to write. It's just you're kind of using it as a very hyper focused search tool at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which I think I have to look into how like the search tool aspects of the AI is trained. But I think if it's just linking you to what's already on the web, kind of like a better Google in some
Better
ways,
search.
yeah,
Sure.
I think that could be more empowering,
Yeah.
especially for creatives when we're trying to research like these really niche topics.
Right.
So yeah, not saying that's like I don't know how those things are trained currently, like the search engine aspect, but
I was gonna say that
yeah.
was gonna be my follow up. There was that I'm very aware,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure someone potentially somewhere might make a comment before they hear this, which is totally okay.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'm very aware that of like what Google is, right, and
Yeah.
how it's been running and what's behind the scenes. Almost every single app and tool that we use online now,
Mm-hmm.
in some shape or form, is shaped or influenced or relies upon AI now. Um, not I don't know how much of that is Gen AI, but I know most of it is at least some sort of AI. So I'm not totally ignorant to the fact that a good portion of my life is influenced by AI,
Yeah.
along the way. But I think to boil it back down, it's yeah, we're not looking at ChatGPT when we're like, what the hell is that word? And I literally can't. I've spent 15 minutes finding this, and I have
Mm-hmm.
a dictionary, and I cannot. I have a book of synonyms, and I cannot find this word. You type it into ChatGPT, and it gives you the thing you're looking for. I think, you know, fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel guilty whenever it does come up and when I have used it in the past just because of like the consumption, but I'm also like, but a Google search takes just as much energy.
Yeah.
I don't think there is no ethical consumption under capitalism or whatever
Yeah.
that quote says. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted to be clear that I'm like really just talking about Gen AI here, like
Mm-hmm.
creating something from nothing or utilizing other people's creative works to then bolster your creative work. I'm not talking really research. I'm not talking like
Yeah.
how it can be used as a tool, but rather yeah, the origination of an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's another important thing to kind of separate, like, as long as you're not, for when it comes to like the examples I was giving, if you're dependent on it to the point that you lose that skill
Uh-huh.
that is kind of required to be a writer. Like you do need to know how to Google
Yeah.
things and research things. So that
Yes,
shouldn't be
right.
your first, like your go-to, but like genuinely, if
Yes.
you have tried and you're like, I really don't know where to find what I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
for. Yeah, I think it can be more useful in those scenarios. But again, with the kind of the distinction between being dependent on it and it being a legitimate, useful tool.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I fully agree. I mean, I know there are like instances of like doctors being like, I don't like these symptoms are crazy. Like, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what, I don't know. It can be useful. I'm not, I don't know. I don't want people to think I'm like 100% against AI in general, but I've got so many qualms that it comes across that way, I think.
Yeah, it's difficult because we have to walk like a very narrow line here of like, no, we're not advocating for use in
Yeah.
creative spaces, but also not being like not ignoring the realities of where it can be beneficial to society. I
Yeah.
think.
And where it can be abused, I think.
Yeah.
Like, also the abuse of it. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I think some of these other ones are a little redundant, but is there one more that
Sure.
you want to pick before we move on to our hot topic, which I'm kind of excited to jump into?
Why don't we just jump into the hot topic? I think we did. I'm looking through as well. I think we did touch a lot, especially I know there are a couple that we didn't ask, but in
We
terms
kind
of
of
like,
some of them are kind of like
yeah.
very close in scope, so I think we kind of
Yeah,
wandered into some of the extra territory there.
I agree. I'm okay with doing a hot topic and having a few extra minutes if you want, or we can
Okay.
I'll leave it
Yeah.
up to you, but I'm down to move on.
Yeah. All right. Do you want me to read the hot topic or do you want to read it?
I can read the hot
Okay,
topic.
I'll let you read it.
All right, ladies, gentlemen, and non binary pals. Our hot topic for the week is: are sensitivity readers necessary or restricted? Gasp. The crowd goes silent. Just kidding.
I like the dramatic effect.
I know, I just had to spice it up a bit.
All right. I guess I'm gonna go first for this one.
Yeah, you tell me. What do you think?
Yeah. This. Okay. Let me be careful how I word things here. I think because I don't want to be clipped out of context or anything with this. So I think with sensitivity readers, I kind of fall in like I don't have a black and white answer to this. I think they are
Yep.
necessary in some instances, and I think like any type of beta reader or anyone giving you feedback, you have to be able to filter it and know
Mm-hmm.
like what's useful, what's actionable, and what you can throw away.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think that as someone with empathy and I feel like common sense that about 75 to 80% of what a sensitivity reader would need to do, I can already do. But
Yeah.
also with the knowledge that I'm not writing anything intentionally offensive or that's deliberately wading into like
Mm-hmm.
severely controversial territory or anything like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I think like that other maybe 20-25% is what I would look for, I guess, in a sensitivity reader. What I'm trying to say is there anything here that unintentionally comes across like any connotations that I'm not aware of? Like, oh, you described this person from this culture in this way. And
Yeah.
that's traditionally kind of stereotypical insulting. Maybe we shift this. That's what I would be looking for. But
Yeah.
I do think some people become like, at least from what I've heard in like self-published space, a little too reliant on it and not able to filter out like what's actually useful. And they use it they can get too worried about like depicting things perfectly.
Yeah.
I guess is where I'm going with that. But I
Yeah.
where I'm at with it is like I don't think I need like a huge team of sensitivity readers because I think a lot of it is just common sense and having basic empathy for other people. But I don't think they're
Mm-hmm.
like a hindrance because, like I said, they can catch those things that you might not be aware of, whether it's because of like your perspective on things or however it might be. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
No, I think I'm almost fully aligned to a T with you on this one. I think they serve a purpose, and I think a lot of them, especially like for the indie self-published space, are usually volunteers.
Yeah.
there's like a Facebook group, many Facebook groups, that like people be like, I need a sensitivity reader for these, like, for a disabled person of color or whatever, and people are happy to assist so that you know you don't walk away doing something egregious.
Yeah.
um Coming from the early late late 2000s, early 2010s Tumblr discourse. And I also used to be one of those annoying people who was like overly social justice warrior y. Um, that's youth for you. But I don't know. I used to be really hypersensitive to anything anyone ever said. And then I
Hmm.
realized I was like actually like being kind of ridiculous. And
Yeah.
then you start to talk to people in those communities and they're like, we don't like, you don't need to
Yeah.
do that. That's
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's a give and a take.
Hmm.
I think it is important to make sure that you aren't doing something so out of line.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think people hinder themselves 100% by one, either the sensitivity readers they've gotten feedback from, or like one of those like really hypersensitive people, which
Yeah.
they are, and it is a book of red of being like, gotta take this out. This is offensive. So you have to know where the line is, and
Yeah.
you don't have to take all of the criticism or like the feedback. And then if you get criticism later, you can talk. I don't know. I think it's there are things in my story that are going to offend people. And not out of wanting to push buttons, but because I think the topics such as like sexual assault or like religious trauma are important to talk about even in
Yeah.
fantasy. So I think people can get a little too like, whoa, whoa. I'm like, but these topics are important to talk about. So are you balancing talking about an important topic in a way that is ultimately helpful and can kind of be an outlet for people in the same way that you've talked about Game of Thrones before? You were in a dark time and then it
Hmm.
really helped you even with all the dark themes. It's like, I don't know. We need to be able to talk about these issues in our literature. And
Yeah.
even if it is shocking or offensive, then you have to ask all these questions. Why is it shocking to me? Why is it offensive to me?
Yeah.
On the other hand, there are people who do not do sensitivity reading at all.
Hmm.
I think Piper CJ is one of those, and then like comes back, and the people who read her novels are like, dude, this is the most racist thing I've ever read in my life. This is insane. Did you
Yeah.
have sensitivity readers? You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's a you got two sides of the issue.
Yeah.
I think they serve a purpose, and I think they are important. In fact, I think personally, my opinion is that more, and I'm sure they're there, but I think more fantasy authors should have them,
Hmm.
like in the traditional publishing space. I think recently fantasy has gotten like way too comfortable in at least the romantasy space. Maybe I'll take a step back.
Yeah.
Romantasy space by like towing the line a little too much. Like it's like, oh, we're using some stereotypes here that potentially might not be really great to use. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, totally agreed. And I like that you touched on Game of Thrones, because one of the things I like from one of Martin's interviews is it was in response to criticism about dealing with like sensitive topics like
Mm-hmm.
sexual violence and just like gratuitous violence in general, kind of being accused of like being too gratuitous, being too over the top, and things
Mm.
like that. And his response to handling these sensitive topics was he thinks you need to handle them honestly. You need to show them for like the brutal
Mm.
reality of what they are and things like that. And so I think,
Yeah,
like you said, you have to be able to filter the feedback and know what you're trying to accomplish
yeah.
and not be too overly correcting. Like if you're going for a
Uh-huh.
certain thing and it is shocking, and that's kind of the goal, and you're trying to have a dialogue about these things, definitely important to get feedback on that. But I think equally important is being able to know what feedback to take and what feedback to kind
Yeah,
of acknowledge but not act on. Same with any
yeah,
feedback, really.
yeah, for sure. And I think it's also like, if you choose to take some feedback and you know, keep some, ignore others, or okay, whatever. and you do get accused of it, I mean, I guess be ready to like support why it's there,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also people people so easily will say things, but then when you challenge them, just kind of go, well, that's your opinion. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
no, but you should be able to defend your positions on things,
Yeah.
especially if you've gotten that feedback and someone says, hey, this is like kind of offensive. You
Yeah.
keep it in. All right, well, you gotta tell me why,
Yeah.
gotta be able to defend it. So.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. I think when you do get that feedback, it definitely still evaluate if it's, if it is something you should change or not,
Yeah.
and then be ready to defend it, because
Mm-hmm.
if you can't, then maybe the feedback is worthy of acting
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Also, thank
Yeah.
you,
I
Nicole,
think
for
it's
all of the likes in the
hi,
chat.
Nicole. Yeah, it's interesting. I think we're in like a new generational phase of like, especially, I know I always bring up romantasy, everyone's tired of it, but like, I don't know, the romantasy genre has really taken off recently, and it's been a lot of like, especially in the self-published space, a lot of women finally talking about and writing about like taboo topics that I think most of the time can only really be understood by like the like female or queer community, and people think it flippant and ridiculous, and I know there's like an inundation of it, but I think especially in the sexual component, people get we're still under a society that thinks that women shouldn't really talk about their pleasure, or like some queer people can't walk around in their town openly, so it's like what should we be focusing on? Should we be upset that there's a lot of romantasy right now and they're talking about things that women enjoy talking about,
Mm-hmm.
or is someone being just like actually racist?
Yeah.
And I think people are going to find something to be angry about regardless. People are going to dislike what you read, but I don't know, it's like pick your battles, I
Yeah.
think, is my final word on that. Pick your battles.
That's a good message for like social media engagement in general.
Yeah, totally. God, I used to be awful. You
No, listen,
yeah.
as someone who grew up in like Halo 3 and Modern Warfare
Oh,
lobbies,
God,
I totally understand. You fight over the dumbest things.
dude. I used to be on, I don't know if you've ever heard of Maple Story. Someone who listens to this is going to
Yeah.
have like an
I have
actual
heard of
like
it. I did not
flashback.
have much experience
Oh
with it, but
God. Yeah, I was addicted to
was
that.
that one
It was a
pretty
game.
bad, like as far as the
Dude,
chat goes?
yes. Yes. It was, oh God, yeah. So many, about as dangerous as getting on Omegle or something like
Oh
that
my god.
really late at
Yeah.
night. You're like, whoa, we have undone Pandora's box. So yeah, it's like, God, I used to be horrible, but that is
Yeah.
it's part of the course. And you learn.
That's funny because that was like a really like that game had like a cutesy kind of art style to it, didn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting.
That's hiding in plain sight as one
Yeah.
of the
Mm-hmm.
most toxic places, especially when people like they get into relationships and stuff, and they'd be like, "Get out of here," or like say some horrible thing. And of course, you'd get banned or whatever, but then I just come right back. So
Yeah. Right.
yeah.
All right.
Anyway,
Well, I think that's going to do it for the AI part 2 episode. Ash, have either of you heard
all
Chicken
right.
Noodle Soup? That was my jam. Is it a game?
Chicken noodle soup is. I've heard chicken soup for the soul. Well, those books. Do you guys remember those?
Yeah, let us know, Nicole. Is that a game? Was
Yeah,
that
I
like an
heard the
online chat
chicken
room
noodle
that I
soup.
don't know about? Like what?
Oh,
Um. Oh,
yeah, I
okay.
don't know. I don't think I've ever heard.
That sounds like, if knowing it's a chat room, it sounds
Oh,
like it's a
chat room.
euphemism for something not great.
Yeah, that sounds like a place that probably shouldn't have been. Maybe.
um,
Anyway,
Ash, do you have any
it's funny.
closing thoughts on our AI topics? Hopefully next week will be, or not next week, next episode will be free from the AI pit. I think we've touched on like every scenario I could think of,
Everything.
so we should be good for
Yeah.
a while.
No, I think this has been great. Thanks for everyone who's been listening and kind of has their opinions and can maybe enlighten us probably to some things that we haven't talked about. I think it's nice to talk with like normal folks about AI that
Mhm.
aren't like really into it, and or like AI in any capacity is the devil. Because
Yeah,
yeah, it's just like, what do normal people think? I think I'm pretty normal, and I think you are too. So
yeah.
thanks for coming along this journey with us, and sorry if I talked too much this episode.
No, it's totally great. Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Just thanks everyone for listening to all
Yeah.
of our episodes on YouTube and all the recent
Yep.
support. And as always, if you have any feedback, any suggestions, questions,
Let us know.
topics, yep, just let us know.
We're around.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we'll have to have like some people come on and talk about maybe like AI in different fields in the future and like see what
Yeah,
their thoughts are.
totally.
Maybe like in a few months or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, Nicole.
All right. Well, I think
All
that's
right,
gonna
y'all.
do it. So I will see you
Sounds good.
all in the next
See you
episode.
guys next
Thank you,
time.
Ash.
All right. Thank you. See you later.